Hey everyone, it's Steph. Welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be talking about books that feature characters that have a forbidden romance. So this forbidden romance trope is all about couples who are trying to be together or have feelings for one another, but for some reason or another there's an obstacle in their way. As you can see, I've got my Aladdin t-shirt on. These two are from different worlds, different social classes, so they face a lot of problems and obstacles to overcome before they're able to be together and have their happily ever after. So that's what this video is about today. So without further ado, if you like this video, please give it a like, subscribe to my channel for more fun bookish topics, and if there are any that I forget to include in this list, be sure to leave them in the comments down below. So without further ado, let's get started. So first up, we have Eliza, Jane Austen Told Me. This is a story by Julie Wright that features a main girl named Emma, a boyfriend that she's been dating for a while. Their relationship is sort of fizzling out. She ends up meeting her stepbrother, forming an unlikely acquaintanceship with him, and some things ensue. The relationship is starting to grow, and we get to see some feelings that are going on between her and this new guy that's in her life. But she is very torn because of his relationship to her ex, and because she's not quite sure what this means for her future and the relationship that she thought she wanted. So this is a really great forbidden romance story, as well as a great story that has some social justice themes in it, which I really enjoyed. So definitely a book that fits this trope and it's very enjoyable. Next up, we have Vying for the Viscount. This is a forbidden romance story about two neighbors, one who is much poorer than the wealthy estate owner who has just moved into the home. She works on his property with the horses on his estate, but he is from a totally different world. So these two end up forming an unlikely acquaintance as she kind of guides him through the introductions to British society. Meanwhile, she is facing very difficult challenges from her stepmother, who is trying to just marry her off to the highest bidder, essentially, in order to attain more wealth for her family. Very different social statuses between these two, but the camaraderie between them is growing stronger, and the potential for romance is there. But they are not well suited in terms of the eyes of society for prospects for marriage. So it ends up being a challenge for these two to figure out how they really feel about one another and then how they can possibly be together. So that is what this story is all about. So I definitely enjoyed it. Next up, we have Giovanna Secret. You've heard me talk about this before on my channel if you've seen my other videos, but this is about Giovanna, who is dressed up like a boy, living on her father, who's a naval captain's ship, and passing off as a boy to keep her identity a secret. Meanwhile, the new lieutenant on the ship has started to get to know her, realize she's been picked on, and trying to kind of look out for her and make sure she isn't bullied too much. And these two find some equal footing, and these two find a way to establish a camaraderie with one another, and definitely a forbidden romance, since he does not realize that she is a girl, but she is most certainly aware of the fact that she is a maturing young woman and that he is a very handsome young man. So you can guess that things ensue, and I really like that this story, once you kind of thought you knew where the story was going, it just had so many different layers and introduced more things, and it was such a great story. So definitely recommend if you are interested. Next up, we have A Bound Heart. This is by Laura France, and this takes place in Scotland. We have a young woman who is very poor, and then the friend that she grew up with, Magnus, is now the laird, and some issues and problems occur where he's expected to get married, but she is from a totally different world financially than he has grown up with. So even though these two get along so well and know each other so well, they are not permitted to be together, and then some problems ensue, and then there's a whole bunch of stuff that happens, and I'm not going to tell you so I don't give it away, but I thoroughly enjoyed this story, thoroughly enjoyed the relationship between these two. It is a very strong friendship, and they know each other so well, and to get to see how those feelings grow as they mature into adults is so good and definitely worth reading. And just to mention, I love this cover. I love the colors and love the vibrancy of it. It's gorgeous. So with that said, definitely fits into the forbidden romance category. Next up, we have A Name Unknown. Oh, this story, so good. We have a woman from the seediest areas of London who is basically a thief and just helps her family to survive, and she ends up being hired to go undercover into a gentleman's home and find out information about who his allies are during World War I. He has some suspicious behaviors. He's a bit of a recluse, and we find out why as the story begins. This also has a stutter representation, which I just loved reading about, and I thought it was such a great representation of what a stutter impacts, how a stutter impacts someone not only for their world experience, but also the way they are perceived by others. And this is early 1900s, World War I era, so we don't have the same understandings that we do today. It's a great story. She is appearing under a different identity than her true identity, so this certainly is a forbidden romance that has a great, great story, great message, and a lot of unexpected twists and turns. Thoroughly enjoyable. And what she ends up being hired to do is work to organize his family's library on the massive estate that he lives in. So if you're a book lover, you can definitely appreciate that she gets surrounded by all these books. We have a lot of that in this story. We have a Castaway in Cornwall. This is about a woman who lives with her aunt and uncle and her cousin on the coast of Cornwall. When a shipwreck occurs, she is the niece of a local vicar, ends up being at the site and seeing a man who is in need of help. So she ends up taking this man, he ends up coming into their family home, and she, along with the family, helps nurse him back to health. And he has a lot of secrets he's not sharing, so we're not sure about his history. But these two start to form a sort of relationship, even though they both have secrets from one another. And we definitely have this sort of forbidden romance where we don't really know what the other is all about, but a thoroughly enjoyable story. And it's really great to see their secrets unfold and see how this romance plays out. Next up we have A Lilly Disguise. This is by Jessica Scarlett, I believe, and this was a really great story. I totally didn't expect it, didn't know much about it. So we have a woman who's running away from a difficult past and trying to make some money to send home for her family. So she ends up taking another identity other than her own and attending a house party. She doesn't count on meeting a man who lives at the estate that she is visiting for this house party, who is kind of seeing through her facade a little bit and picking up that she has some secrets and she's not quite who she says she is. So we have that problem to deal with, while she's also having feelings for the owner of the estate and totally trying to deny it, and this tension that she feels between herself and the owner of the estate while maintaining her secret identity. So it's very enjoyable, definitely the forbidden romance, and really a great story. Last but not least, we have Jane in Love. So this is about a time travel story including Jane Austen traveling to the present day, where she meets a pair of siblings and she ends up getting acquainted with all the realities of present day. So this was a story that I didn't know what to expect going in, but she ends up starting to have feelings for someone in the present day as the story continues. And the longer she stays in the contemporary time period, her books start to disappear. So she is faced with the choice of staying in the contemporary time period and losing her literary contributions to the world, or possibly saying no to a potential love if she has to go back to her own time in order to preserve her contributions to literature. So it makes for a little bit of a bittersweet ending, but we certainly have a forbidden romance in this story. And I thought it was a very, very great read if you like Jane Austen stories, if you're familiar with her novels. We see what it's like to be on the film set of a Jane Austen adaptation in this story, as well as what it was like in Bath in the contemporary time versus her experiences back in the day, and hearing a lot more about Jane Austen as a person, as well as her experiences and her frustrations with the challenges and expectations of her own time. So it was a really interesting study into Jane Austen, as well as thinking about her as a person instead of just this icon who created literature works that we know and love today. So that wraps up this forbidden romance trope list. If there's any that I forgot, please feel free to let me know in the comments. Thank you so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you guys soon in my next video. Have a great day!